on.
Lots of names.
And so for those of you who might be joining us for the very first time, we created the Connection series because we believe that it's families need help more than ever, and the world needs strong families now more than ever. And the purpose of the Connection series is to have families be more connected. And so one of the things that we talk about all the time at Family Brand is that families actually have this opportunity to define what it is they stand for and define what it is they're known for, rather than letting it just happen by default or allowing the world to do it. Like, they can really do it and plant their family's flag. And so we've had the opportunity to bring on amazing guests like Bob, who's really successful entrepreneur, also husband and father. So Bob, before we get deeper into your background, one of the things I love to ask people right away when they first get on is, if there was one thing that you would share right now that you would think would have a family be more connected or has helped your family be connected, is there one piece of advice or something that comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I think trying to, you know, obviously the things that we can do together, everyone has different preferences at different times. So
Right.
I think like rotating that around for who wants to do what and how they want to lead it. And it is sort of like, again, that kind of like you have a company, it's not a top down thing, like really trying to get everyone around. Because if I asked all five of us what's the perfect family thing that we could do today, you would you would get five different
I have different
answers.
answers.
So I do think right. It's just like a company. I think trying to, certain things need to be top down, and certain things probably are more successful bottoms up. And the most important thing, I actually heard Brene Brown say this recently, and I think it's been really illuminated during the pandemic. And she said that there's three types of families, right? There are parent focused families where it's about the parent and the career and sort of what they're doing, and everything else comes second. There's kids focused families where it's really about the kids and their success and otherwise. And then there's family focused families, and that's really like this balance that requires sacrifice on both sides. I've actually come to realize that I think a lot of people who think they have a family focus actually have a kid focus. I think that's more of the swing than a parent focus. I think generation ago it was a parent focus and the kids come second. If you think about some people's weekends pre-pandemic, it was like people wanted to get back to Monday. It was like, all right, here's your games A, B, C, and D, and pick up this and drop off this and divide and
Totally.
conquer, and let's meet for a swap and like that's actually, I think people perceive that as family time, but it's not really family time. It is
Yeah.
sort of kid parent time.
That's a great insight. I love you saying that. I have a client that I've always really respected and looked up to, and her two children are grown into their 20s now. And I've just always respected the dynamic she has with her adult children, which I think is unique. I think it's rare and unique to me when you see adult children grow up and they're still just
Yeah,
as connected to each other as siblings, which isn't really common, and
yeah,
to the parents. And anytime I observe that, I always ask, okay, what did you do to create that? Because that didn't happen by accident. And one of the things she said was, she said, I always thought it was crazy when all my friends would basically book out their weekends for the entire year by all of the different activities they would put their kids in, and their weekends were just spoken for.
yeah.
And she was
And they're
like,
not together in most
yeah.
of those activities. Yeah,
And she's like, I was never going to set that up as a parent. Like, we made a conscious choice when our kids were little that there will be a time and place for them to play sports,
yeah,
maybe, but when they choose to, like in junior high and high school. And she's like, I also believe that your kids are going to be fine if they don't play sports from the time they're 4 years old. If they're a gifted athlete, like, they're going to pick up that sport later. She's like, I always wanted our weekends to be free to go explore and to go camp. And the way she talked about it, she's like, our kids throughout the week get this kind of crust on them from the
yeah.
world and school and friends, and it's kind of like these attitudes and just from technology. She's like, and we would have the weekends to go, like, in our opinion, was to shake the crust off of them and get that off.
And that's collectively and individually. I mean, I know I felt like I've had the weekends just to relax in the time that I need as a person too, right?
Totally.
So that I'm not showing up sort of half empty to everything too. So yeah, the weekend sort of been a whole new thing for us.
Okay, that's amazing. I love this idea. I'll have to look at that. Brene Brown says there's parent-led families, there's kids-led
Parent
families,
focused families, kids
parent
focused
focused,
families,
kids focused, and then family focused
Family
families.
focused. And I would make the assumption that 3/4 of the kid focused families think that they are family focused families.
Yeah.
But it is more divide and conquer, particularly when you start getting above n equals 3 on children, right? You
Totally.
get into zone defense.
Yeah, and one of the things that's interesting about that, Bob, I've shared this story a couple of times, maybe once on the Connection series, but when I first started the Campfire Effect, I had this feeling like a few months into it, I could kind of see the next year, and I saw all this opportunity, and I was like, man, if I really blitz for a year and I really like full court press, I could see that building momentum that would kind of like launch the Campfire Effect.
Yeah.
And I also realized that would be me like gone a lot based on how I currently knew how to do my business at that time. And I don't know why I had the foresight to do this. I don't know. I'm sure someone probably gave me the idea, but we sat down as a family and we talked about our vision board that we had created that year.
Yeah.
We had this home on it, on property and on some land. And we had all these things. And I said, I think we have an opportunity to create a lot of the things that we've been wanting to create for years. And here's what would be the sacrifice for the family, not just me.
Yeah.
And are we up for it? And I was really willing. I was hoping my family would vote yes, like to support me in it. But I was also really willing to say, if that doesn't align with our family, then I won't do that. And we consciously decided as a family that that's important to us. And there was times where I landed in Phoenix, hung out in the airport for an hour and got on another plane and left and never like saw my family. And there was times where my kids would complain, or I would, or my wife. And it was, I mean, we would remind ourselves that we as a family had collectively made that decision. And so that idea of maybe that's like a little bit what Brené's talking about is like a family focused family is like, we as a family are going to create together and we're going to make sacrifices for each other. We're going to support each other. And that doesn't mean that there's not a time in a season where it's like, hey, you know, one of the things that we've decided to do, Bob, as an experiment is there's a season where no one does anything, whether that's the fall season or the spring season.
We all ski together. Like we miss the birthday parties, we miss the activities. We go up on the weekend, probably offend a lot of people, but that we're a ski family in the winter. That's our thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is something that one of the things we teach in the family brand course. So we teach that the family brand is a combination of language, culture, language, and experiences.
Yeah.
And under the experiences part, one of the exercises we take families through is to actually do an audit of their family traditions and just really like look and see, like, do these traditions really serve us as our little family unit? Because sometimes we get these traditions that we're adopting from like extended family or bigger family. And I think sometimes we don't realize that we can just say no. And like, it's okay to maybe offend some people or some family or like, so how what's that experience been like where you guys are like, no, like, well, yeah, we have the bigger family unit. Yeah, we have friends, but this is what's important to the little, like the 5-member Glazer.
My wife and I are like a little bit on the extremes of both of this, which is good because we try to get to the middle of it. I think, first of all, you know, you brought up, you talked to the edge of this point, but I think the notion of balance is very misguided, right? Yeah. And feeling like the scale will be perfect. I love the quote, anything worth doing unbalances you. I think there are going to be weeks where you're a road warrior and you need to do what you need to do for your business. And then similarly, you want weeks where you have family time. It's kind of like quality fitting together. I think you try to hold the standard of like, it's always in balance. That's sort of a false standard.
Right.
But there's also, you know, it's funny, Northeastern aren't usually as polite, but there's this politeness around look, if it's, I think the important things like funerals and big birthdays and family stuff, like that's great. But if you start adding up all the things that you're going to be invited to, you know, it's going to be every weekend. Yeah. And I think it's okay to say, no, we're doing this weekend, or sorry, you know, we had to say to some people like, we on our ski weekends, but we ran into, my daughter had separate skiing and some other stuff. And there was like a couple weekends we couldn't go. And then someone would say, oh, we were having this on that weekend. And we just had to be like, I'm really sorry, but it's just one of those weekends that our whole family can go, and we designated it. And like, we're just making that choice for us. There's a lot of stuff going on and people celebrate everything sort of pre-pandemic. And like I'm probably over comfortable opting out of things, and this is why I said my wife and I balance each other out a little bit there.
You and I are probably, it sounds like a similar dynamic in our family. But one of the things my wife had pointed out a few years ago, it was like, when you're first starting your family and you don't have, your first child yet, or your kids are really, really little, it's normal, I think, to like opt into other people's traditions, right?
Yeah.
But as our kids started getting a little older, we wanted to have our own, which is again why we have families do an audit of their traditions, maybe create new ones. But
Yeah.
my wife was like, I don't enjoy Christmas time anymore, which should be like a time of like
Right.
connection and fun and like
Didn't do it
family.
to do it. Yeah.
And she's like, we're booked like all the time, running around from thing to thing to thing. And she's like, so that gave us the courage to finally opt out of some things.
Right.
But it also, every year as a family, we try to pick a word for the last several years. We pick a word that we want to embody as a family. And for us, what we found, what's that?
You guys are serious.
Yeah. But for us, Bob, what we found is having one word that we want to embody as a family actually does more for us than having a bunch of family goals that we never like live up to. Like that's
right.
So,
it's a standard.
Yeah. So it's like, this is just a word we want to embody. And we pick a word based on, feedback from our kids and what we thought went well the year before, what we think we could work on. And one year our word was peace. But that was the same year my wife was having this thought around like just overbooked. And we came up with a phrase that we were going to ask ourselves every time we went to make a decision that year, which might be overboard, but just to try it out. And the phrase was, does this promote peace in our family? That one question had us say no to so many things that we otherwise normally just would have just kind of like unconsciously just said yes to. So we'd get asked to a family party. We'd get asked to go out of town on a vacation. We'd get
Want
asked
to go to the in-laws house? No, that does not promote peace.
Yeah, that's right. But just having a filter to just be like, okay, this sounds fun, but like, does this promote peace? Yeah, it does. And it'd be funner. No, it doesn't. But I love this concept. I didn't know this what we would end up talking about today, but it's just like, I love this idea of families recognizing that from big things like to your mission statement and your values all the way down to like just weekend activities. I think sometimes, Bob, as families, we forget that we get to decide how our family operates.
Yeah. I think my wife and I were really, I would say a lot of a third, a third things that, I had that I liked that she had that she liked, and ones that we've created. It's interesting. One of the ones we had to abolish that the kids loved. My mom always did this, and we decorate their rooms, on the day of their birthday. So, when they fall asleep, we decorate their room, and you wake up and there's balloons and stuff everywhere. And like, it's really fun. And the other kids are usually trying to stay up, and then the person doesn't want to go to sleep. As they start to get older, we're like, guys, like, if you want to stay up till 1 a.m., like, we're not doing it. So like, I'm not, they're too older, teenagers. So now we put the stuff down on the kitchen table. But we actually had to be like, if you want to go to bed, we'll decorate your room. I can't make myself stay up till 1 o'clock to decorate your room. Yeah.
One of the things that was funny, Bob, and I'd love to maybe hear a couple of your guys' traditions when we did this exercise first as our family, right? Because everything that we teach in Family Brand is just stuff that we've experimented, failed at, had success with. So when we did this with our own kids, we're like, hey, what traditions do we like? And we just set all the kids down and they started talking. And then the other thing that we tell families to do in this idea in the course, when you're auditing your traditions, audit your family vacations. Yeah. Not the random ones that are one-offs, but some vacations are kind of a tradition, like you do them every year, every so often. And when we were looking at our traditions and we were looking at our vacations, what was crazy, kind of inspiring and also kind of discouraging, not one of our kids, even in their top 3 traditions or top 3 vacations, were the ones that we'd spent the most money on.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
Like the extravagant, and I realized we do those for us as parents. Like our kids' favorite vacation traditions, sleep in the back of the truck on that camping trip where it rained and we forgot the tent.
Maybe Disney.
Yeah. Like the small 4th of July hometown rodeo we go to and we stay at a friend's house. And so that was just kind of this eye-opening that like, there's a lot of research out there that shows that kids really, there's a lot of power in traditions because it gives kids a sense of belonging and like a certainty that they can count on things.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes we could maybe have traditions that aren't the fanciest. They're not the most, but they're things that are meaningful to our family.
Yeah. And sometimes, again, not everyone's on board. I think you've got 7, right? So it's hard to be unanimous about everything. So sometimes it's, if 4 out of 5 love the tradition and 1 doesn't, then, that we keep doing that. I think if 3 don't, then, just like in a company, feedback of 1 is tougher. But yeah, it is, the other thing I think that's real, I think is most critical, and I know from your branding is to try to come from a hierarchical set of values, and not rules, right?
Yep.
Same in company. Like, here are the values. These are my wife and I's 3 red lines. Like, if there's yelling, it's going to be because one or more of these was violated. Because I think if you start getting upset about everything, then people don't know the difference between a misdemeanor and sort of a, you know, a criminal offense. And to me, it's the core value ones that really, like, that's sort of the red line. And you can, there's a CEO I know who says that anyone in his company is safe making decisions under one or more of the core values, right? That way you just don't need 150 rules.
Yeah.
And it helps to bring things back to the core values. So when I'm fighting with my 11-year-old around, you know, why I can't have the third bag of Cheez-Its, it's not because I said so. Hey, look, we talk about being healthy. Like, this is tied to the principle of being healthy. So I catch myself a lot trying to tie, hey, why are we talking about this, or we're arguing about this, back to a core value.
I love that. And I'm so glad I'm so glad the conversation is going here. So for those of you watching, Robert Glazer, known as Bob to me, with here on the Connection series, Bob has an amazing company, really successful entrepreneur with Acceleration Partners. I've had the privilege of, doing a little bit of work with their company. And we're talking about today, like, the power of owning your weekends as a family, not being like just scheduled out and saying yes to everyone and everything, looking at like what traditions really work for you and your family. And now kind of leading into this discussion. And by the way, I'd love to encourage you guys to start a watch party so we can share and reach more families with this. If you're watching right now, you can actually just start a watch party and share it live on your page. So Bob, do you guys have a family value that's like Glazers are healthy, or is one of your core values?
Yeah, so it's sort of like a little rubric. It's be happy and healthy, be respectful, responsible, resilient, and be kind.
Okay. So I want to talk about that. I love the fact that you guys have stated values. And again, there's no right or wrong. I think if a family has any kind of values and any mission,
and normally I argue to people in business that less is more.
Totally.
We just came out with that. It just sort of worked, and we liked how it was the letters. It just sort of worked as a.
That's awesome. So for those of you watching, we've had a lot of people on the Connection series saying, hey, when's your course going to come out so we can actually build our family mission, vision, values? And I'm always telling them, like, well, in lieu of that, it's going to come out, but like, you can start working on them now.
Yeah.
One of the things that we have done within the course and the families that we've taken through this just individually is your family, quote unquote, what corporate would call your mission statement. We call it your big idea. It's your we believe. And we think it's more powerful for a family, rather than saying our mission is, it's we believe.
Yeah.
And it's like a we. So ours is, we believe you can be who you want to be.
And was it you or McKernan, like the some things do hard things? I just heard someone say that.
Smiths do hard things is one of our core values.
Yeah.
So just, it's funny, like, if you as a family just started saying like, hey, what do we as a family believe more than anything?
Yeah.
In the form of a mission statement. The other thing is, when creating a vision statement, what we've encouraged families to do in the framework is, instead of saying our vision is, we have all of our families start it with, we are committed to. And so it's like this powerful language around, here's what we're committed to becoming. And then with values, we've actually seen, like, I just believe, Bob, there's a power in attaching your last name to each of the values. Yeah. So like, instead of ours just saying like, hey, our values are, resilience.
Glazers believe. Yeah.
Yeah. Glazers believe. Glazers are healthy. And it's just like, that name means something, and it like becomes like a brand, just like in an organization.
Have you read, there's I did a Friday Forward on this, but it probably ties to the psychological principle too that Adam Grant had talked about around, like, if you say to someone, don't, because it becomes not like a thing, but who you are. And so the psychological principle, you tell people don't drink and drive versus don't be a drunk driver. The second one is much more effective because it's a state of being. It's not an activity. Right. I don't know what the principle was called, but I'm guessing it's that same power. It's like, this is who we are, not what we do. Right.
Totally. And you're right. Like, and so our values, like, Smiths do hard things. Smiths love and support one another. Smiths can talk about anything without judgment. Right. We have a few others, but it's like, it's less about what we do and don't do. And it's more about who we're being. and who we're becoming. I also think, Bob, that what's interesting in the world we live in today, with all that's going on right now, I see so many posts talking about what people shouldn't be doing and what they're against.
Yeah.
Which to me, all that does is when you tell someone what they shouldn't be doing and what you're against that they're doing, it just pushes them deeper into that. Like they have to defend it. But if we use language like, hey, here's what I'm for and here's what we could be doing, it's like there's possibility in that. And that's kind of, I'd never want our family values to come across as this rigid set of rules around what we do or don't do. It's like, here's who we're committed to being and what's possible.
I literally was just finishing the Friday Forward this morning, and obviously, there's a lot of complicated stuff going on right now. And there's a lot of people saying, here's what you should do, what you shouldn't do, how you respond. If you're X, you should do, and no one responds well to that. That was literally the thing that I wrote, saying like, no one responds well on any side of this being told how they should think, feel, say, what timeline.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't know anyone in any context that responds well to
Well,
that.
it just drives me like, for example, I just shared a quote the other day by Neil Strauss. I don't know who he is, but I love the quote. So I shared it, but it was, shaming people into action creates acting. Yeah. Inspiring people into action creates change.
Yeah.
But yeah, anytime if I went to one of my kids and was like, hey, you shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to do this. We don't do this. There's a likelihood that they want to do it even more, like drives them further into like,
yeah.
But if it's like this reminder of like, hey guys, like, if my kids are bickering, for example, I can go get on them about how they shouldn't bicker and fight. Yeah. Or I can say like, hey guys, Smiths love and support one another. And you helped come up with those values.
Like, yeah. Or if you keep doing this, here's what's going to happen, right? You're going to do that. You're going to fight the sort of educational component. I won't get into, step into a landmine on this, but I was giving some of the example of some of these lists, of saying on this, just people, hey, here's how you could educate yourself on this if you're interested in doing that versus dear X person, these are the 7 things you need to read before you open your mouth. Like it just, no one reacts well to it.
No. And I might open up a can of worms here and I don't want to politically, but I read this amazing article not long after Trump was first elected president. And the article was actually written by someone who said, like, I am outright against Trump. I hate Trump. I wanted Hillary to win. I'm a liberal. I'm a Democrat. Yeah. And what the article went on to say, though, is that this particular woman said, I believe that one of the greatest forces that got Donald Trump elected were people who were telling everyone out there in the world, you would be an idiot to vote for him. And it was the people that were on the fence that were tired of being told like that I'm an idiot. That was finally like, okay, then I'll show you. Right. And I'm not, but my whole point is like, there might be a better way, same within our homes, to encourage the type of behavior that we want instead of telling them all the time what they shouldn't do and what they can't do and how they're not supposed to be. It's like, or we just have this common language. It's like, well, here's who we are and here's who we're striving to be as a family.
And we all agreed about what these principles were.
Yeah. So one of my favorite quotes about this is those who help plan the battle don't battle the plan.
Yeah. There's another one similar. Like it's there are no hecklers in the play.
Totally. It's like, so people ask us all the time, like, hey, can you get your kids involved? And we're like, not only can you, like, yes, you want your kids to help shape the values, to help shape the mission and the vision. Like you want them to be part of it. And so, okay. In closing here, Bob, like you talked about your business, you talked about company, and we do these things in companies. Like, why do you think oftentimes as entrepreneurs and business owners, it's easier for us to be more intentional about like the brand and the culture and the values of our company than it is our own homes and families?
I don't know whether we see the proof of those systems there and we see the before and after. It also, there's more people involved. But yeah, it is those same systems, the meeting cadence, the values, the goals, the sort of check-ins, the accountability. It's all those same principles. And I just think we're more familiar with them in that context than we sort of are in the home. But they're the exact same principles that work in our home stuff from what I've seen.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's some questions I always ask, a couple questions I haven't given you any preparation on this. So just whatever comes to you top of mind. If I was to say, hey Bob, what does the Glazer family stand for more than anything? If you had to say one thing.
Yeah. I'll tell you the thing that I tell my kids a lot, which is sort of my operating model, which is and granted, this is the whole family. You can do anything you desire as long as you're willing to do what's required. So I actually, I think, as a lot of things, I think there's a spectrum I've seen of parenting of like, Chris, you could be anything. You could be an astronaut. Like, you're awesome. Like, you can be whatever. And kind of just like unaccountable, like just telling you, anything. And then the flip side of, Chris, you could never be an astronaut. You'll never be this. So that's stupid. Stay in school. Versus like, Chris, if you want to be president, here's or an astronaut, here's what you actually need to do. Like, you need to get straight A's, go to here, go to space camp, do this. So that's really what, I think we stand for, sort of like individually being your best. And I'm trying to help. Each of them is different. I think a lot of families have like the program. Here's what we do. And I think, well, that's true. Each of them is different, right? Different activities, different things. Like, how do we understand what's important to them and then help them be the best, but also be that realist for them of like, my son, who right now would like to be a professional Fortnite player, that's his current phase. Like, hey, look, this is what it takes,
right?
And this is what these people are doing, and all that stuff. So, yeah, I don't think anyone has the right to crush anyone's dreams, but I think being really realistic about what that takes. Like, that's awesome. You want to be a professional baseball player? Like, here's the work that a professional baseball player would put in.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that work?
One of the things that we've been talking about a lot lately that this reminds me of, and it's off of the heels of a private client that I've recently been working with around culture, and what they identified is that they believe that a really healthy culture challenges and supports.
Yeah.
So it supports people in being who they are more than they've ever been supported, but it also challenges them to become, and so this idea of like the support side of that would be like, yeah, you want to be an astronaut? You totally could do that. That's totally possible. But then the challenging part would be like, and I'm going to challenge you.
Yeah.
To like, go do it then. And like, here's what it takes. And
and I'm not going to do it for you. Right. I mean, the biggest failure of a generation of parenting, and you see this on the sports field and all the stuff, is people putting their hopes, wishes, things that they didn't do, like, onto their kids who don't want to be doing it. It is not about them. It is about the person. And it's so obvious to anyone who's been on the sidelines of any sport, versus like, really, what do they like? What do they love? What do they want to be? But then there's some reality there. Look, I see it right now with COVID. Like, there are people trying to act like, having a graduation, out a car window or whatever is the worst thing that could ever. That's not a great lesson to teach your kids. That, like, one of the best quotes on parenting is, prepare your kid for the path. Don't prepare the path for your kid. And I think so many people are like, okay, world, like, move around. My child is coming. Bad stuff happens. Like, this is a great lesson to teach someone about how to be resilient, cope with it. You're alive, you're healthy. Yeah, it sucks. Like, it does suck that you can't have your graduation, you can't have this, but something else is going to suck in the future too, right?
I love that. Prepare your path for the kid. Prepare your kid for the path. Don't prepare the path.
And I would say parenting up until Gen X has sort of, taken over from the boomers parenting. The last, from 5 years ago to before that, it was just like, everyone get out of the way. Like, I'm working on the path, for my kid. And then the problem is the kid never falls off the path until later, and they literally don't know how to get up.
Yeah. No, it's one of the things we have in our home, and it's not just for our kids, it's for me and it's for all of us. But we have this little saying that just kind of snaps a lot of us out of it, and it's create or complain.
Yeah, I like that.
And it's like, look, like, those are your two options. Like, you can create or you can complain. But are we raising kids that think like creators? Are we raising kids that think like with resilience and possibility? Or are we raising kids that are just going to complain about their situation and like it's just being done to them?
Look, as a parenting, there are no good answers right now, right? These are bad decisions that people have to cancel stuff with no good answers. So I don't have, my daughter's not this age, but the high school graduations have been changed. Parents are emailing and angry things. They're just, like someone did it to their kid, not like it's this global pandemic. So I can tell you one thing our town did was they had each person decorate a car all the stuff, stand out the sunroof window, and then the family drove the car, and the whole town came out, and everyone said it was best graduation than they could ever remember. Like it was so much better. And I just think about all the whining and all the stuff where people are just so upset that it just wasn't, it had to change. And now everyone's like, how do we do that again?
Yeah. But that's like it really is that some like that your town chose to create. Other towns are choosing to complain, and your town's like, look, like, but that to me is a real.
Well, the town created, the parents complained.
Right. So good on the town. Okay. Two other questions.
Sorry, I derailed you.
No, you're good. What do you want to be known for as a family? Like if you look out into the future, and if let's say my family really got to know the Glazer family, and we're sitting around years from now, we're like, man, the Glazer family, like they just are known for.
I really would be that last one, kindness. Like I've said, if anyone could walk up to me and say something to me about one of my kids that would make me just beam from ear to ear, it would be like, you have a great kid. It wouldn't be, he was awesome at softball, or he was great at violin, or whatever. It'd just be like, you have such a nice kid. Like
just kind.
He stood up for my daughter. He did X or otherwise.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question. We are creating a culture in our home. Is it laughter? Is it play? Is it resilience? Is it like, I'm curious, like, what would you say?
I think it's responsibility. I would say that now because it's being very clouded. Like, I think we oscillate with everyone home in the middle of all of this, a lot of, independence, a lot of us needing everyone's help right now. I think we're all like learning the importance of doing what we say we do to, we all have chores, like, so that's really just been, that's top of mind right now, because I think that's been a big focus the last couple of months of like, we're all sort of displaced in one way, and we're trying to help out and contribute to the family unit.
That's awesome. The last thing I want to say again about Bob is they just have an amazing company, Acceleration Partners. Bob's got a
great new branding too.
What's that?
We got great new branding.
Where can we find your book, Bob?
You can find all my books, a newsletter I have called Friday Forward that goes out to about 100,000 people each week at robertglazer.com. And if you're interested in the company, it's accelerationpartners.com. It's literally easier to Google Acceleration Partners than it is to try to type that into the browser.
Yeah, Bob's got some amazing books, amazing thought leadership. I'm curious, is it important to you, or do you want your kids to be entrepreneurs and follow the path you've had of entrepreneurship, or is that not?
No, it's interesting. I want them to be whatever they like. I'm trying to help them become great at whatever they sort of are, right? I think it's about helping become your kids who they already are. I believe deeply that anyone in any industry can benefit from basic business and financial skills and marketing. Like, I don't care if you're a doctor, I don't care if you're a researcher. In fact, that ends up being the Achilles heel for most people. Like, we teach all this like liberal arts stuff and whatever, which is great, but like anyone's going to have to know about balancing a bank account or getting in revenue or otherwise. So I do make sure that they understand all of those principles, but and be creative and solve problems and things that I think are entrepreneurial characteristics. But no, it's a tough life. If it's not like in your DNA, it's very hard to force yourself into it.
Yeah. People ask me that all the time. Like, man, your kids are for sure going to be entrepreneurs, right? Or you're going to for sure want them to be entrepreneurs. And I said, I'm more interested in them being entrepreneurial minded than being entrepreneurs. And some people are like, what do you mean by that? It's like, well, to me, an entrepreneurially minded person is the person that, whether they work for someone or they're a doctor, a lawyer, they own their own business, it's someone that's willing to like see possibility and see things differently and like create versus complain, like all those types of things. And whatever industry that is, it's like whatever is aligned with them.
And look, a lot of things entrepreneurs don't have financial literacy. So all my kids would be able to, they would tell you the difference between revenue, profit, savings, debt. Like, we talk about this stuff a lot because I think you're going to have to use that in anything that you do.
What a gift, like what a foundation. So again, thank you. Some of you are just hopping on now. I really encourage you to watch the entire, interview here with Bob, share it, start a watch party. We've talked about everything from like how to own your weekends as a family and not just say yes to everything and everyone. Talked about the difference between a parent-focused family, a kids-focused family, and a family-focused family. talked a little about traditions, talked about the power of values. You can go to robertglazer.com to find his books, his newsletter that goes out every Friday, Acceleration Partners, amazing company that you can find out more. So Bob, thanks for coming on here, man, and being part of the Connection series. If you guys want to find more interviews like this, just type in Family Brand at Facebook, and we will talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, Chris.